Ahead of the last international break before the summer tournaments, we discussed any late inclusions to the England squad and whether there's any betting value to be found there. Sam looks to build on last week's miraculous quiz performance before providing not one, not two, but three bets for this week's card. All that and more on today's show. Hello and welcome to the Betting Expert Football Podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Jenkins, joined as ever by Betting Expert's football editor, Mr. Sam Ingram. How you doing, mate?
Hello, Dan. I'm good. How are you?
Fantastic. I enjoyed a good Arsenal win in the Champions League last night. Never in doubt, I think it's fair to say.
I woke up when the last penalty was saved or scored?
Oh yeah,
I can't remember. I was in a bit of a daze, so I didn't see extra time, but I saw you went through. So
you did not miss much from extra time. It was
okay.
pretty dead, I think, at that point. Yeah. So looking at last week's bets, you did have Arsenal. Speaking of which, you had those in the Premier League against Brentford. You had Arsenal to win the first half, and over 1.5 Arsenal first half corners. Everything landed except for Arsenal winning the first half. And we were, 2 minutes away from that happening. I suppose, Sam, you can get everything about the bet right, but you can't account for a goalkeeper basically booting it into his own net.
Oh, Aaron Ramsdale. Oh my God. I don't even know where to start, to be honest. Like, I couldn't really believe what I was watching. I didn't actually watch the second half. Went out for a run instead. It was just so frustrating because like individual errors like that, they just can't be accounted for. The bet looked brilliant, played out exactly how we spoke about it in the first half. Arsenal were in control, rarely looked threatened. They were heading into half-time 1-0 up. They had two corners, which was obviously the last part of our bet after about half an hour, so it was all plodding along rather seamlessly, and I saw the ball go back to Gabriel on the left. About 48 minutes gone, and I thought, ideal. Let's see this out. Knock it around the back if you have to. Ref's gonna blow. And then it went back to Aaron Ramsdale, and as soon as he took that touch, you could see like Visser was really closing in on him, and just in that position, just get it gone. He's hesitated for too long. Just get it into Rosette, put it out for a throw, put it out for a corner if you need to. I just think that's I know I probably sound bitter because he lost me my bet really, but I just think that's unforgivable. That's unforgivable from Ramsdale, and I think that obviously it wasn't, but it could have been the difference between maybe a Premier League title or not. And luckily for Arsenal, it wasn't. And although Arsenal's come out of the match unscathed, I don't think Ramsdale will be leaving that pitch unscathed. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the last he plays for Arsenal.
Yeah, same, especially after David Raya's heroics in the penalty shootout last night. But, I mean, back to the Premier League. We'll put a pin in the title discussion for the time being, but it was a good weekend for Arsenal. Looking at the other match as well, with the other two of the big three, you had Liverpool versus Manchester City. You had another tip for that. You had over 2.5 goals, sorry, and City win double chance. What did you think of that one?
Yeah, another loser, so not ideal.
Another run in the rain kind of match for you, was it?
How is it? Well, not this time, but how has there only been 2 goals there? There were so many chances, and it was a game of two halves. As cliche as that is, Man City will have felt like the first was theirs. And likewise with Liverpool in the second. I was really impressed with Liverpool, actually. But even in the second half, when they were really cranking up the pressure, Doku hit the post for City. Phil Foden was one-on-one with Kelleher from probably a tighter angle than he'd like. I'm surprised they both missed. I feel like either side will take a point in terms of the run-in, but both will feel somewhat aggrieved that they didn't take their chances and leave with all 3 points in what materialised to be the perfect result for Arsenal.
Yeah, very good weekend for Arsenal, and agree. I thought Liverpool did really well in the match, especially considering the players out injured, and good performance from Klopp's side. But I mean, bringing it back to the tennis analogy, Sam, the rather tested tennis analogy that I brought out a couple of weeks ago. Did you play the right shot but lose the point for both of your tips? I mean, if the same fixtures were being played this weekend again, Arsenal versus Brentford and Liverpool versus Manchester City, would you go for the same bets in both matches?
Yeah, maybe. I suppose in the City game, you could argue that Liverpool edged it, so maybe that wasn't the best bet you could have took in that game. But in terms of the Arsenal game, I think we pretty much hit the nail on the head. So these things happen, and as frustrated as I was on Saturday evening, it's just one of those things that individual errors are going to happen. Hopefully not to us again, and not to that extent again this season. But we'll see. I'm sure we'll get shafted along the way at some point.
So that takes the overall profit to plus 0.635 units when staking one stake per bet, which you've done so far. And that's it for last week. Let's move on with the discussion for this week. Obviously, we've got the Premier League and the FA Cup this weekend, but before the international break next week. So, I think as it's the last break of the season with the European Championships coming up, I think it's a good opportunity to talk about the England squad. We are recording this on a Wednesday, and Gareth Southgate will be naming his squad for the friendlies against Brazil and Belgium on Thursday. That will affect the odds in the odds to make the play, make the England squad market. Sam, is this something that you often look at, this market?
It is, Dan. Yeah, I think it's a market where you can unearth a nice bit of value if you're quick enough and if you can pinpoint players coming into form at the right time. But at the same time, though, for me, admittedly, I find it really quite hard to price certain players. If we're betting on a player's ability and form, it would be like taking candy from a baby. But the bet here is ability plus form plus Gareth Southgate plus experience and harmony within a group that he, so desperately wants and has honed and molded over a number of years. So, for example, no one in their right mind would back Calvin Phillips and Jordan Henderson to get the nod in that midfield, would they really? But equally, no one would be shocked if one of them is, or both, is sitting on the plane to Germany in the summer. For Qatar, for the World Cup, I was actually quite big on Tammy Abraham. Obviously didn't go to Qatar, but he was scoring loads in Serie A at the time. He was breaking records for Roma. I think he was the best ever or goal scoring Englishman in Italy or in Serie A or something. And no one had ever got close to the numbers he was churning out as an Englishman in Rome. Southgate liked him. He was featuring in England squads, and he was a fair price. I can't remember what price I got him at. But then he hit the worst form of his career just before a season-ending injury ruled him out of contention completely. And that just goes to show what we're dealing with here. The players that look a shoe-in now before Southgate picks tomorrow's squad might well be nowhere near it on the pitch in a few months. So it's a difficult market to conquer, I think.
Yeah, it's not exactly completely footballing market. You're competing against Gareth Southgate essentially to try and find kind of players who are getting into form and outthink him. I think is the goal with this market. So I want to go through the squad kind of part by part, position by position, and I think the goalkeeping situation is very interesting. Obviously, Jordan Pickford will be there, providing he stays fit. But after him, it's a little bit more open. Sam Johnston has been playing for Crystal Palace, but it is as low as 1.25 to make the squad, which feels very short considering he's been England's third-choice goalkeeper for a long time. Aaron Ramsdale is at a 1.4, which looks like value, but again, as we saw on the weekend, mistakes are creeping into his game. He hasn't been playing. But I really like Nick Pope at 5.0 on Bet365. He could play almost 2 full months in the Premier League before the Euros if the reports of his return to fitness are to be believed. Do you have any thoughts on the goalkeeping situation?
Yeah, my overarching thoughts is probably one that I just swerve completely. If Aaron Ramsdale isn't playing, which we've just touched upon briefly, and he's got a fully fit Nick Pope back and keeping clean sheets in the Premier League, then maybe that 5.0 is worth taking. Worth taking for Nick Pope. But yeah, there's just too many unknowns there for me to pull the trigger, I think. And there's also Jack Butland at 4-1. He's also having a really good season at Rangers. Playing in Scotland's probably doing him a disservice in terms of an England call-up. But if Rangers beat Benfica on Thursday and they progress in Europe, I think they've won the Scottish Cup. They're top of the league. reaching, the last stages in Europe, then maybe there's a case for him too. But yeah, I wouldn't be going near Ramsdale, Johnston or Pickford. I don't really know where Southgate goes with it in terms of goalkeepers, so it's a difficult one, and one where I'll probably just keep my money in my pocket, I think.
Fair. I'm mindlessly backing Nick Pope in this. I feel like there's something there. Got the red string up on my walls. So is there anything in defence? Obviously, England have about 150 options at right back, but is there anything there or across the rest of the defence?
Let's start at right back. I've got the odds up here. Reece James at 4.00. That will catch a lot of attention, I'm sure. Like, Dan, why is Trent 1.25 and Reece James 4.00? Both injured at the minute.
I couldn't tell you, Sam. I suppose Trent has been playing a little bit more in midfield for England. He had a couple of games there, didn't he, towards the end of last year? And he's obviously they're both injured, but Trent, I suppose, has been fitter this season.
Yeah, you're right. And like you said, he's like a dual threat, Trent, isn't he? You can play him further up the pitch, which is probably factored into that price. But I know when fit, Southgate prefers Reece James at right back. The most off-putting reason for me to avoid Reece James is, I don't know if you can remember, other than his injury record, is that he turned down the chance to join the England squad last time out when he was called up. I think he was just coming back from injury. I think he'd played for Chelsea. And Southgate named the squad. I don't think Southgate will be overly pleased with that. And actually at a press conference at the time, he said that Reece James didn't feel quite ready to be included. And the England manager then warned James that his decision puts his place at the Euro 2024 next summer in jeopardy. And he had last played for England in September 2021. So it might be that statement from Gareth Southgate that pushes those odds out a little bit. But I've got a sneaky suspicion that 4.0 price, it might look favourable come the summer, but he's got to get back fit and firing, and he has to dislodge Malo Gusto at right back as well, who's performing very well in his absence. So that's one to look at for me. Also next on my list, which is an interesting one, is Jared Branthwaite at 3.25. What do you think of him?
He's a good player. He's obviously very, very different to someone like John Stones, but it's a similar kind of career trajectory, maybe, looking at it right now. Obviously not as good on the ball as John Stones, but I do think he's more of a pure defender, isn't he, Branthwaite, from what I've seen of him. I think he may suit international football a lot more, but I'd say he's more of a Maguire than a Stones. So I wouldn't be at all surprised if he found a place in the squad. What about you?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's a goer, really. He's been great for Everton, despite their poor season. The Toffees are actually 16th in the league, but have the 4th best defensive record in terms of goals conceded. Branthwaite has fashioned a pretty impressive partnership at the back with Tarkowski. He's composed on the ball, can pick a pass, handy in the opponent's box as well. And I think he'd slot into that England back line if called upon pretty seamlessly. It's funny you brought up John Stones and Harry Maguire. I'd probably see him in between those two, because he's really competent on the ball. And I saw yesterday that United are lining up a £75 million bid for his services in the summer. Now, I'm not sure if there's any truth behind that, but it just shows the trajectory that the wider footballing world believes this lad has in his locker. And at 3.25, England aren't blessed with centre-halves. Think back to Qatar. Who did they take? I think it was Cody.
Connor Cody was there, wasn't he?
Who else was there? I've got it here somewhere. You had Maguire, Stones, Walker, Cody, Eric Dyer is obviously not going to be involved. Ben White was there, not going to be involved, although obviously more of a right back. I just think that there is a space for him. And I can't think of too many English centre-halves right now that are competing with him in the Premier League in terms of form, quality. I think Southgate may pick him tomorrow in the England squad. And if he picks him tomorrow, I'm pretty confident he'll impress behind the scenes. I think that 3.25 is a pretty good price. And I think maybe if you can give me the nod for it, I think I may take this as an outright bet for the pod.
Wow.
At 3.25.
Straight on there.
we've not done that, have we? I don't even know. Is that allowed?
I mean, I make the rules, so I suppose it's up to me. I think I'm going to allow it. I think I'm okay with that. But I would advise people to be a little bit wary. Well, I'm a little bit wary of this squad that's going to be coming out tomorrow. Last friendly, obviously it's the last games, but it's the last friendly games before the major tournament. And I think in the past, Gareth Southgate has seen these friendly matches as an opportunity to try out some fringe players. We've often seen some kind of England B sides in friendly matches in the run-up to international tournaments. So I don't think, if your name's on the squad tomorrow, I get the feeling that maybe it's not a lock for the European Championships. I may be wrong, but that's just the feeling I have coming into the squad announcement.
No, I think you're bang on. But I think in terms of maybe this outright selection, there's probably a leg up for Branthwaite, because if that is the case, you'd expect him maybe to be sniffing around a call-up. So
yeah, he may be competing with someone like Joe Gomez, I think, for a place in the squad, who's obviously a little bit further down at 4.0. If there's a space open for one, maybe Lewis Dunk. I don't know. We'll see.
Not having the best seasons with Brighton, I suppose. Joe Gomez, those two are probably battle it out, but just, I don't know. It's just a little bit uninspiring for me, Gomez at centre half. I don't know.
You've got to know
probably
your
a bit mean,
son.
that, but
midfield is interesting with Calvin Phillips well out of form and Jordan Henderson's situation. Let's just call it that. Now, I actually backed Kobe Mainoo to make the squad a few months ago at odds of 12.0. So pleased with that, because he's down now as low as 1.80 with some bookies. Is there anything in the midfield?
Kobe Mainoo was actually the one I was going to mention first and foremost on midfielders. He plays like he's far beyond his years, like Branthwaite, so composed and calm on the ball, largely press resistant, as he'll pick a pass or saunter out of any given situation, really. And I think that will be a huge plus in the eyes of Southgate. I was on a stag do recently, and my mate Jack, he's a huge United fan. He had me in the corner of this bar for what felt like 4 or 5 hours, and he was just telling me like how good Mainoo was and that he has to start for England. So United fans absolutely love him, and I think there's a bit of United tax there. I think we should consider that. Like, I think if Mainoo was performing like this at a Luton, at Nottingham Forest at this age, I don't think he gets anywhere near the plane. As he's doing it at United and as he's performing so well, I think he has a chance. We've probably missed the boat. Well, you've not missed the boat. I've probably missed the boat regarding value. That 12.0 price is when you should have really pulled the trigger, obviously. At 3.25, I don't think it's one that I'm really too keen on. But if you got the bigger prices, then I think you're sitting pretty ahead of that squad announcement in the summer. Elsewhere, in terms of midfielders, I love Eze at Crystal Palace. Like, as a footballer, I think he's fantastic. I would have him in my England squad all day. What do you think, Dan? Would you?
Oh, he's a very good player. He's outstanding. Yeah. I think for England, it's about finding that third midfielder, that third starting midfielder. Declan Rice surely has the number 6 position locked down, and then Jude Bellingham will be playing a little bit further forward. Even if it's somebody who's going to sit next to Rice, which Southgate has done quite often, or maybe go into more of an 8 role, dual 8s with Jude Bellingham, remains to be seen. But yeah, I think I don't even know who's going to start in that role, let alone who's going to be sitting on the bench.
Yeah, I have no idea either. That's why I think Mainoo's got a bit of a leg up. I think Eze, you can really play him. You could play him there, really, like more advanced maybe against the lesser teams, and you could even put him left or right wing. Although I think those two positions are kind of are locked down. But in terms of like being a part of the squad, I think he's got a really good shout, and he's now back fit, leading the charge at Crystal Palace under a new manager, and that could be enough of a springboard to get back into the England squad. He was called up in May and then again in September, and I know it was noted how much of a good addition he was behind the scenes. He comes across as a really nice bloke. Took the time to speak to everyone within the England setup, everyone working behind the scenes at St George's Park, and there's loads of videos of him doing so. I'll bring that up because Southgate will gobble that up, I'm sure. He's huge on characters coming in, playing for England. That will feed into a sense that everyone's pulling in the same direction and getting on with each other, like more of a family type setup than a bunch of footballers all, pushed into one place. And Not only that, he's a very good footballer, and I think he offers something which we don't have in abundance. Someone who's lightning quick with and without the ball, someone who's willing to carry the ball in central positions through the third and beat his man. And I'd expect there to be a few really positive performances at Palace in their last 10 matches or so under a coach who's not as pragmatic as Roy Hodgson. And I think that could be pivotal at the Euros, his skill set. And at 2.75, I think that's a good price.
Yeah, could be something in that. It's a good point you brought up about Southgate going for players who kind of make up that family spirit, because that is it follows on from the Reece James discussion as well. I think that's something that Southgate has always tried to do. He doesn't want this England squad to be like the England squad of 15 years ago, when it was a lot of very good players, maybe more of a collective than a squad, and players were just coming in when they pleased because they knew their place in the squad was assured, regardless of how they were playing for their form and how they treated England, whether they just showed up when they wanted to some of the time. We
saw it with Ben White in Qatar. Like, obviously Southgate wasn't pleased with something. I think he may have had a falling out with like a backroom member of staff. Sent him home straight away. Didn't want that in his, England setup. Didn't want it to affect anything. And yeah, so you're right. He's massive on it, and that's what you've really got to think of when approaching this market, which makes it so difficult.
Yeah, that's what's interesting about the market, to be honest. It's like you are trying to outfox Gareth Southgate to play him at his own game. Mm-hmm. So the forwards will be tricky. Impromptu quiz here too, Sam. How many of the top 10 goal scorers in the Premier League this season are English? Right now, time of recording.
I know it's a lot. Should we work through them quickly? Not Kane. Watkins.
Yeah.
Bowen.
Yeah.
Foden. Is he top 10?
Foden's in the top 10, just about.
Cole Palmer.
Cole Palmer's in the top 10, just about.
That's 4. I feel like there's 5.
There are 6.
There are 6. Wow, okay.
6
That's impressive.
Yeah.
I like that, yeah.
Missed out Saka and Dominic Solanke.
Saka.
Yeah.
Solanke, of course, yeah.
I wanted to talk about Solanke as well. So he's at a 4.0 to make the squad. That feels long.
Yeah, it sounds long, but I think if it was me in charge of the England squad, I'd go for Kane, Watkins and Toney, centre forwards. Dan, if you had to choose 3 with an English hat on, forgetting that you're Welsh for a millisecond,
Welsh, yeah.
Really Welsh, who would you go for if you had to pick 3 central strikers?
I'd probably go Kane, Watkins. I'd probably go Solanke.
Yeah, it's a toss-up, isn't it, between Southgate and Toney. I think it's a bit of a shootout. I feel that Toney would bring more to this squad in big moments. I don't think Toney would let the occasion phase him, which is probably half the battle at these major tournaments when the pressure is ramped right up. He's also a cracking penalty taker, which is needed in any England team, let me tell you. The Euros is a 23-man squad, not the 26 we saw in Qatar. So I think there's only really space for 3 centre forwards, and that's if you count in Watkins as a central striker, which I think we should. Don't think we should be playing him out wide. In the squad, Southgate picked just before the Qatar squad, he brought Callum Wilson in for Ivan Toney, whose betting charges came to light just 6 days after that squad announcement. And Toney later said on his England World Cup admission, it felt like someone was out to get me. So it feels like there might be bad blood there between the FA and Toney. And is that going to affect Southgate, who's like the biggest FA man you could ever come across? Is that going to affect his decision? If you think yes, then Solanke at 4.0 wouldn't be the worst bet in the world. In fact, a pretty good one. Callum Wilson should miss out, as will Calvert-Lewin. He'll get nowhere near it. And Tammy Abraham is just, not even in the conversation. So it's between Toney and Solanke, I think.
Yeah, and I that is the kind of logic for me, is that I feel like Southgate would go for Solanke over Toney.
I feel like he would. I don't feel like he should, though. I know Solanke's scoring goals, but like I said, just in those big moments when you want to count on someone, I'd be much more comfortable counting on Ivan Toney than Dominic Solanke.
Yeah. Raheem Sterling out at 5.5?
don't think I'm having him,
No?
No, I don't think so. I think we're blessed out wide in forward areas, and I just don't think. I know he comes with experience, and Southgate loves him. Although he did drop him, didn't he, for the recent squads? Just think we've got more than enough. We don't need him.
On to the first of Sam's bets this week, and we're heading to League One as Lincoln City hosts Bristol Rovers. Sam, tell us about it.
Lincoln to beat Bristol Rovers at 1.80. Betting is largely all about getting behind teams that you can trust, that you think will put in a good show in defensively, offensively, no matter the opposition. And I think here we've got Lincoln are a good side, very good defensively. They're unbeaten in 12 now in League One. They're a side I trust to take on anyone, really, and keep it solid at the back. Only Portsmouth, with 32 goals conceded, have shipped fewer than Lincoln's 33 goals this season. That's an average of 0.86 conceded per 90 after 38 matches. That is impressive. And in this 12-match unbeaten run that Lincoln find themselves on, they've only let in 4 goals. 8 of 12 of those matches saw Lincoln keep a clean sheet. Now, Bristol Rovers, who are at their best offensively, will really need to scrap to break down this well-drilled Lincoln side. So looking at the League One schedule for the weekend, this is one that instantly kind of stood out for me.
Lincoln are the form team in League One at the moment, aren't they? With 7 wins from 9, no defeats since the 1st of January. They're still very much stuck in mid-table, though. So are you expecting them to start climbing the league table? Or is this right now a bit of a temporary run of form that we're leaving out in the next few weeks?
I think they should start climbing that League One table. If they're only actually 3 points off Stevenage in the final playoff spot, although Stevenage have played 2 games less, Bristol Rovers will be safe in comparison in the table. They are mid-table. They've got 50 points, and I think they'll stay there. They're not going to get relegated. They're not going to be in the playoff conversation. So I'm not sure there's much left to fight for them, but it feels like Lincoln will threaten a playoff position. So we should probably keep our eyes on them going forward. The numbers defensively have been pretty good all season since Michael Skubala has taken charge, and after a sticky patch in December under him, they've really started to click through their gears. And now, looking at the last 2 matches, they're also starting to become a real threat in attacking areas too. So if you couple that defensive solidity with what we've seen against Barnsley at the weekend, Cambridge last night, Tuesday night, then I think we're onto something with that 1.80 price at home to Bristol Rovers. So on the weekend, Lincoln pumped Barnsley 5-1, who were doing pretty well themselves, Barnsley, away from home on Saturday, and followed that up with a 6-1 win at home to Cambridge on Tuesday night. At this level, right now, they're performing as well as anyone in the division, and we can get them onside at a backable price on the nose at home, and it's a price that I think will be much shorter come kickoff. So yeah, 1.80 for Lincoln to beat Bristol Rovers. I'm happy with that.
Okay, good. I mean, you mentioned the defensive record for Lincoln. I thought it was interesting because that may be tested here. Bristol Rovers have only failed to score in 3 of their 19 away games in League One. So that could be, they're going to have to hold solid is what I'm trying to say against this Bristol Rovers attack. So yeah, 1.80, not the highest price, but if you're happy with it, Sam, add it to the card.
Yeah, happy with that. We'll go with that.
We'll just take a quick break before Sam gives his final 2 bets of the show and do a little quiz, which is coming off our discussion about Gareth Southgate and his England squad. So obviously been in charge of England for a while now. This may be his last major tournament. So I wanted to do a kind of commemorative, a look back on his past England squad. So Sam, a total of 85 players have played for England under Gareth Southgate. I want you to name them all.
Ideal. No. We got an hour or so, yeah?
Yeah. So, right. Just give me 6 players who have scored the most goals for England's men's team since Gareth Southgate took charge in September 2016.
Harry Kane.
Harry Kane is one of them. He scored the most goals. He's made the most appearances, the most starts, and played the most minutes.
Okay. Sterling.
Sterling is second. He has scored 18 in 50 starts, so 55 appearances. He's actually been subbed off more than any other player for England since Gareth Southgate took charge.
Sterling.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting.
4 to go.
I want to say Rashford.
Rashford is third. He's just working down this
Wow.
list here.
Okay.
Sam. Yeah.
How many am I going for? 5.
6. I went for 6.
Okay.
Don't ask me why. I just went for 6 over 5. Rashford has been subbed on more than any other player by Gareth Southgate since taking charge. 16 goals in 56 appearances for England under Gareth Southgate. Far fewer minutes. He's got a good strike rate, Rashford.
I'm not sure about this one. What about Saka?
Saka's fourth.
See,
He's done, I mean, he's been picking them up the last few months, hasn't he? So he's on 11 in 32 appearances, which is pretty good. Pretty good. 1 in 3. He had a hat trick, didn't he, last year against someone? Yeah. Struggling, yeah.
I am struggling a bit now. Maybe I'll just bow out with a top 4. So that's
You're not going to get one wrong. You don't want that hit to the
100%
ego.
and bow out.
Yeah. You're gonna have to give me one. I can't just have you not guess.
Is a defender one of them?
Maybe, yeah. I'll give you that. A defender is one of them.
Yeah. What is Maguire?
Maguire.
Is he? I thought he might
Maguire's
be
fifth.
right up there.
Slabhead. Yeah, he's 7 goals in 62 appearances. The most yellow
7
cards.
It's
of any
impressive,
England
that, you
player.
know.
What, the goals or
It's
the yellow
impressive.
cards? Or the head?
Both.
Yeah,
Yeah, the
all
head
three.
too. Do you know what? He's actually really good for England. Like, I know
He
he's
is.
got his critics, and rightly so, at domestic level, but really good for England. The last one.
I was hoping this would be the one that would catch you out. The last one.
Okay.
Giving you some light coaching just to get you through it.
Yeah, I'm really not sure about this one.
No. Just give me a name. Just give me a name. Any name. Any England international.
No idea. Grealish. He's not
Grealish.
scored hardly any,
No,
but
unlucky.
who is it?
It's Jesse Lingard
Oh my god,
coming
yeah.
in 6. I don't think he's played for about
I wouldn't have got that.
4 years, but he's actually 6. He's scored 6 goals in 32 appearances for England, which was very much surprising to me.
There we go.
Good for him. Back to Sam's bets. And Sam, your next pick is another over 2.75 goals tip. And honestly, Sam, I cannot remember you ever tipping this before we started the podcast, but it's become a personal favourite for you, the over 2.75 goals. Is it just a case of you backing it whenever you see a 2.75 Asian handicap line in this very high-scoring Premier League season?
Yeah, yeah, it is. It's not a line that I've really taken to regularly in my kind of betting past. But with the amount of goals in the Premier League this season and how we see games transpire in some matches, they just tick the boxes for goals when you look at them beforehand, and it appears so much easier to predict goals at the minute in the Premier League than the 1x2 or the Asian handicap. So yeah, Luton versus Nottingham Forest over 2.75 goals, 1.95 on Bet365, which I thought was a pretty good price. 2 relegation threatened Premier League sides, 17th versus 18th, both in desperate, dire need of points. I'm coming at this with a similar thought process to my next bet in Burnley versus Brentford. I think they're both going to go for it. If we get an early go in this game, I think this could be good fun. Kenilworth Road is chaos. Luton have scored in 13 of their 14 Premier League home games at the Kenny this season, failing only in a 1-0 loss against Tottenham in October. Now, only Manchester City, Newcastle and Tottenham, who have all scored in 100% of their home matches, have scored a higher percentage of their home games this season than Luton's 93% strike rate. So Luton at home, they're good for a goal. And Nottingham Forest have only kept 2 clean sheets in their last 24 away games. In those away games, they've only won 2 of 24 matches against Chelsea in September and Newcastle in December. And these are the types of games that Luton have to take advantage of if they're going to stay in the division. So I think it may be a little open. I back Luton to score, and this is a game that may descend into chaos.
Yeah. If you're backing goals and Luton are involved, I'm fully behind it. Both teams have scored in 21 of 27 in the Premier League in their games this season, which is the joint highest in the division. My only concern is Nottingham Forest. Their last 3 matches in all competitions have finished 1-0 in each. Is that a worry for you?
Well, it's not ideal, is it? The last few games. Having scored in each of their first 9 Premier League games under Nuno Espirito Santo, they've now lost 1-0 in both of their last 2 Premier League matches and 1-0 in the Cup too. But that was against Liverpool at home and Brighton away. Not the easiest of fixtures right now. Luton on the road feels like an easier assignment. Although looking at the table, there's certainly going to be no handouts at Kenny on Saturday afternoon. We're approaching the stage of the season where Luton simply have to win. Draws and losses at home, a place where they are capable of beating teams, simply won't do it if they're going to survive, and that should help this bet. Whoever goes behind here will be forced to open this game right up. And if we look at Luton's recent home games, we are greeted with high-scoring spectacles. Got 3-2 against Villa, 6-2 Man City, 2-1 United, 3-1 Sheffield United, 4-0 Brighton, 3-2 Chelsea. You've got to go all the way back to December to Luton's 1-0 win over Newcastle to find a match where this didn't pay out at least half profits. 10 out of 14 games at Kenilworth Road have hit 3 or more goals, and I expect that's a trend that continues on Saturday. For me, there's no way Rob Edwards sets up his Luton team to sit back and rebuff Forest advances on them at home. They've been playing this way all season, and they'll fancy their chances here of ruffling a few feathers, I think.
Yeah. Now, Sam, on to your other tip, your final one of the show, and it's yet another goals pick. Tell us about Burnley versus Brentford.
Mentioned it briefly, then I'm going for Burnley versus Brentford over 2.75 goals. Again, exactly the same bet at 1.98 on Bet365. So if you didn't know, if we get 3 goals in the match, that's half profits. If we get 4 goals, that's full profits. 2 goals or less, we'll lose the bet. This bet specifically, there is an inability to see out football games in Burnley. They have just let a 2-0 lead slip against West Ham on the weekend, and they were fortunate not to lose that game in the end. Danny Ings came on, scored, had a goal rightly ruled out for offside as well, and then rattled the crossbar at 2-2 in the dying embers of that game. Brentford are similar to Burnley in that respect. Brentford with 28 points and Burnley with 20 points are the 2 teams to have dropped the most points from winning positions in the Premier League this season. So that tells me that if either grapples the lead from the other on Saturday, there's every chance of those defensive fragilities rearing their head once again and affording their opponents goal-scoring opportunities. Looking at the personnel in either camp, David Fofana has been involved in 4 of the 6 Premier League goals Burnley have scored since his debut for the club in January. And Brentford striker Johan Visser, who's now back and fit in that Brentford team, he has scored in each of his last 3 Premier League games and has now scored exactly 7 goals in all 3 of his campaigns in the competition. So he'll be keen to better that, of course, and he'll feature alongside Ivan Toney here, with the likelihood of Neil Mopai either joining from the bench or starting from the off. And there's goals there in that Brentford team at that end of the pitch, and their team desperately needs those goals in these kind of fixtures. So hopefully we can rely on them for 1 or 2.
Yeah. I was looking at the stats. Brentford have the 3rd lowest average away goals total in the Premier League this season at 2.79. Only Manchester United and Everton have a lower average figure in their matches. Brentford would have only had the full over 2.75 goal line land in 21% of their away matches this season. Just 3 of their away games have had over 3.5 goals. Is that a worry for you?
Yeah, it maybe a little bit. I think it's just this stage of the season, in this Premier League season, where it's just full of goals and teams can't defend for toffee. It just feels like this is the way the games are going to go now. And fair enough, like we need to take season averages into account, but I also think we really need to focus on the position that the teams find themselves in right now. And we spoke on last week's show about how the Brentford treatment room, I think I said it was like a hive of activity at the minute, with the likes of Mitch Pinnock and Ben Mee now absent, Ben Mee out for the entirety of the season. It was huge for Brentford this season. That level of disruption at the back should be noted, I think, when looking and comparing maybe averages beforehand throughout the season. And as should the fact that the Bees are within touching distance of Luton, and that should give Burnley, who have been playing better of late, who have been creating more chances of their own and taking them on the weekend, should give them a shred of hope and maybe a sense of expectation to some degree that they have enough about them to make the upcoming 90 minutes an uncomfortable period for the visiting Brentford back line. I think in forward areas, Brentford have managed a goal against Arsenal last time out in peculiar circumstances. I'm never going to mention that goal ever again. That's the last time. They put 2 past Chelsea. They hit a double away against West Ham in a defeat. And they also hit 1.69 XG versus Liverpool in their last 5 matches. So if you zoom out and analyse their recent 10 outings, or 15 outings, going a little bit further, Brentford have actually overseen 3 or more goals in 12 out of 15 recent Premier League matches, and 4 out of 6 away from home, dating back to the turn of the year. So if we get 3 at Turf Moor and it's a closer scoreline than 3-0, I'd suggest there's a chance that in the closing stages that 3 can turn to 4. Burnley have witnessed over 2.5 goals in 6 of their last 7, with the 2-0 outlier against Bournemouth, a fixture where they were desperately unlucky and wasteful in front of goal. They recorded 1.49 XG, and it should be noted as well in that stretch there was a 5-0 Arsenal thumping too, which they didn't really contribute too much. So we probably should take that into account as well. But yeah, I just think, look, there's 10 games left for Burnley. They picked up a point on the weekend. Performances are improving. They've been threatening in the final third. I think on Saturday they go for it here and they really try and take the game for Brentford. And I think if they do that, they're going to leave themselves a bit susceptible at the back. Brentford can really hurt teams when they're on it, and we should see some goals, I think. Yeah,
and if it is only the 3 goals rather than the 4, well, I suppose we'll take the half win, won't we, and move on to next week. So, Sam, just to sum up, I mean, you said it was 1.98 odds. It's actually gone up to 1.99. So
wow,
even more value, even more.
Get it locked in.
Get it locked. So just to recap, you've gone for Lincoln City to beat Bristol Rovers. That's a 1.8. You've gone for over 2.75 goals in Luton versus Nottingham Forest. That's at 1.95. And again, another over 2.75 goals. That's in Burnley versus Brentford at 1.99. Now, doubles, treble, or singles?
I think we'll go singles, Dan.
That's bold strategy. Okay, fine. Lock them in. Actually, 4 bets this week added to the sheet. So
yeah, 4 bets.
May not planting the seeds for that one. It'll be a while before we see it, but yeah, good stuff. Let's wrap it up there. As ever, if you are going to be using some of the tips from the show, then please gamble responsibly, only betting what you can afford to lose. And if you've got some spare time, we've got a bit of a Q&A section on our Spotify account. If people want to ask any questions there, or on the Betting Expert Discord server, which we may decide to answer them on next week's show. If you have even less spare time, please just leave a review on Spotify or Apple Podcast, because we are a brand new show and it helps so much with visibility. Let's wrap it up there. Thanks as ever to Sam Ingram.
Thank you very much.
And thank you from me. We'll be back next week.